Vietnam is the 14th most biodiverse country in the world, with rich and diverse natural ecosystems. It is also known for its valuable wild genetic resources. However, the world is currently facing the sixth mass extinction, with about 75% of wild animal populations disappearing in the past 50 years. Vietnam is not exempt from this declining trend. As a developing country, Vietnam faces serious problems due to the exploitation of natural resources to support rapid development. The destruction of natural forests and hunting of wild animals to meet human demands have resulted in a significant decline in Vietnam's biodiversity and posed an imminent threat of extinction for some wildlife species. It is time to fight back. Act now or never. It is the time for Save Vietnam's Wildlife to be established to stop the extinction and champion the recovery of threatened species in Vietnam. Save Vietnam's Wildlife is a non-profit organization created to promote the leadership role of Vietnamese people in conservation. We continuously develop long-term programs that directly and sustainably benefit wildlife conservation efforts in Vietnam. The core values which we always strive for are trust from our partners, built on the results and values upheld in our conservation activities. We work by the principle of speaking the truth, doing the real work, and using money effectively, thereby always demonstrating professionalism and perseverance to bring the greatest, longest-lasting, and most sustainable benefits to wildlife conservation. We are committed to fulfilling our responsibility to the ecosystem, to wildlife, as well as to the community and society. Save Vietnam's Wildlife is always a reliable partner for government agencies in coordinating and implementing wildlife conservation activities. We are currently working closely with units such as the Administration of Forestry, the Forest Protection Department, the Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Agency, and the Police Department for countering environmental crimes. In addition, we have signed strategic cooperation agreements with 6 important conservation units, including Cuc Phuong National Park, Pu Mat National Park, Cat Tien National Park, U Minh Thuong National Park, U Minh Ha National Park, and Dong Nai Cultural and Nature. Save Vietnam's Wildlife has the mission to reverse the decline of ecosystems, protect habitats, and restore endangered wildlife species in Vietnam. With the confidence of the Vietnamese people in conservation work and the support from the international community, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has been implementing conservation programs across the 3 regions of North, Central, and South Vietnam. We are currently operating in 3 main conservation areas, including protecting endangered wildlife species, safeguarding forests and ecosystems, and connecting and promoting conservation activities within the community. Many wild animal species in Vietnam are being illegally hunted and traded to meet the domestic and international demand for wildlife products. This has led to a serious decline in the populations of rare and endangered wildlife species, pushing many species to the brink of extinction. Save Vietnam's Wildlife has been focusing on species conservation and rewilding to restore wild populations before it is too late. First, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has collaborated with 2 wildlife rescue centers in Cuc Phuong National Park and Pu Mat National Park to rescue various wild animal species. Each year, we directly rescue around 500 individual animals from illegal hunting and trafficking. In recent years, the successful rehabilitation rate of rescued animals has exceeded 80%, and most of them have been released to their natural habitats. Second, Save Vietnam's Wildlife facilitated the establishment of the Vietnam Wildlife Rescue Network and became its chairperson. Vietnam Wildlife Rescue Network has the participation of 24 rescue units representing organizations across the country, together with various non-profit organizations, to connect, enhance the capabilities, and ensure that wildlife rescue efforts provide genuine value to nature. Third, to rewild species, Save Vietnam's Wildlife collaborating with Cuc Phuong National Park to act as a pioneer unit in implementing the conservation breeding program for Austin's palm civets and Chinese pangolins. The goal is to reach captive populations of around 50 individuals for each species before releasing them into the wild. The purpose of our conservation breeding program is to gradually restore wild populations of Austin's civets and Chinese pangolins, and to reintroduce these species in areas where their populations have become extinct or severely depleted. Fourth, Save Vietnam's Wildlife is a pioneering organization in developing conservation strategies for Austin's civets and Chinese pangolins. We are also one of the leading organizations in pangolin rescue efforts globally, with our biggest and sole effort of restoring the wild instincts of this species in semi-wild areas. We have successfully utilized drone technology to monitor the behaviors of post-released pangolins. At the same time, we continue to connect with domestic conservation units and zoos to construct several programs to restore wild animals. Fifth, Save Vietnam's Wildlife conducts research to support the development of profiles for endangered, precious, and rare wildlife species that are prioritized for protection, assesses the conservation status of each species, contributes opinions and supports conferences and workshops in the process of developing regulations for the management of these species. Finally, Save Vietnam's Wildlife is proud to be one of the pioneering conservation organizations in Vietnam that applies modern technology to wildlife conservation efforts in the country, using camera traps to record and assess the status of wildlife species, utilizing thermal drones to monitor elephants, aiming to reduce human-elephant conflict. The first organization in the world to use wildlife drones to monitor post-released pangolins, allowing for the tracking of multiple individuals, optimizing the use of human resources, and increasing safety in the field. Ensuring the safety of forests with high biodiversity value and creating a safe habitat for the re-release of wildlife has become a top priority in Save Vietnam's wildlife strategy since 2018. Save Vietnam's Wildlife has selected key conservation areas to protect entire ecosystems. Firstly, protecting Phu Mat National Park to conserve the northern Truong Son tropical montane rainforest ecosystem. Secondly, protecting Cat Tien National Park and Dong Nai Cultural and Nature Reserve to preserve the lowland evergreen forests of Southeast Asia. Finally, protecting U Minh Thuong National Park and U Minh Ha National Park to conserve peat swamp forests. To achieve the goal of reducing threats and creating a safe environment for rewilding and increasing populations in the wild, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has implemented various measures to protect the forests. This includes establishing an anti-poaching team using smart software to enhance forest patrols alongside rangers, combating illegal wildlife trade, applying poacher cam to detect violations, conducting community education and awareness campaigns, developing ecotourism and livelihoods for local people, and researching camera traps to assess population changes for natural recovery. To promote forest patrol and site protection work, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has established an anti-poaching team to work together with the forest ranger forces of the 5 national parks and conservation areas to increase the effectiveness of forest patrols in these areas. The beginning of our forest protection efforts was when Save Vietnam's Wildlife started collaborating with Phu Mat National Park in 2018 to establish the first anti-poaching team to enhance forest patrols, as well as working with the media and local authorities to combat illegal wildlife trade. After 6 years of implementation, illegal hunting activities such as shacks, forest incursions, firearms, and traps have decreased by over 90%, demonstrating the clear effectiveness of this collaboration. Phu Mat is one of the first national parks with 100% of its forest protection force utilizing smart mobile technology for forest management and protection. In the core area of Ki Choang, after 3 years of protection, almost all illegal hunting and forest incursions have ceased. Once Ki Choang was safe, we proceeded to re-release numerous wild animals. Phu Mat is the first national park to implement a wide grid system for camera trapping to assess changes in wildlife populations. Research has demonstrated an increase in both population and species at Phu Mat National Park. Notably, in the small grid area of Ki Choang, there has been a significant increase in both populations and migratory species as the habitat has become safe. Save Vietnam's Wildlife's camera trap system has for the first time recorded the binturong in the wild, along with many sightings of the Sunda pangolin, Chinese pangolin, raccoon dog, ocelot, spotted linsang tiger civet, and Austin's palm civet, with many young animals observed with their mothers. Save Vietnam's Wildlife is the first organization in Vietnam to apply the poacher camp camera, which integrates artificial intelligence technology for poacher detection. These cameras enable rangers to know the time and location of individuals entering or exiting the forest, facilitating organized apprehensions. After the successful implementation at Phu Mat National Park, the model has been expanded to Cat Tien National Park, U Minh Thuong National Park, U Minh Ha National Park in 2021, and Dong Nai Cultural and Natural Heritage Conservation Area in 2023. Save Vietnam's wildlife staff are currently working directly with 6 different national parks and conservation areas to assist forest protection. We are promoting our work with the central government agencies to scale up this model nationwide. Vietnam may face a shortage of forest rangers and patrol personnel, so Save Vietnam's Wildlife has been experimenting a model of using local community members to protect the forests in national parks, hoping this will bring long-term and sustainable benefits to the local people. Through practical evidence of forest management and protection efforts in conservation areas, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has contributed to many policies and supported government agencies in drafting and organizing conferences and technical meetings to provide input for policy draft documents. Save Vietnam's Wildlife is a reliable partner having contributions to laws and legal decrees regarding forest protection. Alongside the efforts to conserve species and habitats, community engagement and community-based solutions are long-term and sustainable approaches to protect nature. Therefore, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has implemented 3 key programs aimed at raising awareness and concern of local communities, thereby motivating them to take action together to protect the nature, wildlife, and biodiversity of Vietnam. Social research is an important activity to build a comprehensive picture of the current situation of exploitation, trade, and consumption of forest resources, as well as the perspectives, awareness, and attitudes of the community towards the issue of nature and wildlife conservation. This allows the design of programs that are tailored to the local issues. Through its community education and awareness-raising programs, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has achieved extremely impressive results and has earned the trust of local authorities in the 6 key conservation areas. Save Vietnam's Wildlife has established the first carnivore and pangolin education center in Vietnam in Cuc Phuong National Park, implemented school educational activities, and promoted awareness-raising for community in the buffer zone areas. Especially, in 2021, Save Vietnam's Wildlife for the first time implemented the demand reduction program in the key conservation areas of Gate and Province, with the mission of changing the behavior of illegal wildlife consumption and working towards the vision of safe wildlife in Vietnam. With the positive results in Gate and Province, the demand reduction model has been expanded to 5 southern provinces, including Dong Nai, Lam Dong, Binh Phuc, Kien Giang, and Ca Mau. After more than 3 years of implementation, the demand reduction project has achieved impressive results. To promote sustainable livelihoods, Save Vietnam's Wildlife has developed an ecotourism program to bring Vietnamese people closer to nature by promoting experiential programs, developing and diversifying tourism products, and enhancing operational capacity in key national parks and conservation areas.
Cái nguồn thu nhập này không chỉ là cái việc phát hành cái cuốn hộ chiếu, mà cái nguồn thu nhập này sẽ giúp cho các cái vườn quốc gia, khu bảo tồn có thêm các cái nguồn thu ngân sách, cũng như là giúp cho tạo ra cái thu nhập bền vững cho cộng đồng địa phương khi thúc đẩy được du khách đến các cái vườn.
Our journey in fulfilling the mission has had many challenges but also includes many memorable and proud steps in which many people have dedicated their lives to continuously strive for wildlife conservation in Vietnam. We would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our partners and donors, including organizations, businesses, and thousands of individual donors who have accompanied us on this long journey. We would not have been able to achieve these precious accomplishments without the support of all of you. We believe that with the companionship, determination, and efforts, Save Vietnam's Wildlife will have greater motivation to continue its journey of wildlife conservation, and there will be more wild individuals living safely and healthily in their natural habitats.